A big new theory is going around for Roman Reigns, and it's an exciting one that could bring a lot of old events back into the spotlight. Starting things off with this new insane fan theory for Roman Reigns, and a new potential direction for him. Things are much different right now in current day for Roman than it's been in recent years. In recent memory, Roman Reigns was the true centerpiece for storytelling in WWE. He had the title with him, the bloodline with him, Paul Heyman with him, just so much elements and dynamics constantly revolving around him that he really felt like this constant storytelling machine. But in current day, a lot of those elements have been stripped away from him. There is no more title, no more bloodline, no Paul Heyman, no anything truly left. Roman squashed the issues with the original members of the bloodline back in 2024, but still, he no longer has much of a storytelling universe surrounding him the same way he did in years past. This is something that Triple H even mentioned during the Unreal series. Triple H said during one of the meetings that his big fear about taking Paul Heyman away from Roman Reigns is that Roman will have nothing left. But either way, they went through with the breakup plans there for Roman and Heyman. So where does Roman go from here after SummerSlam, after picking up that tag team victory? Well, a very interesting theory fans are talking about right now is the idea of recreating Roman and Jey's feud from 2020, but shifting the roles around in current day. Back in 2020, Roman and Jey had one of the most personal feuds and greatest stories that we've seen over the last few years. Roman was the brand new Universal Champion at the time, but he had pretty much lost his mind with this obsession of being the tribal chief and leading the family. So when Jey became #1 contender and came after Roman's title, Roman was pretty much offended that Jey would even dare contest him for the title and positioning in the family. That led to their entire fallout and Roman doing some pretty evil and despicable things to Jimmy and Jey along the way to protect the title. And after brutally defeating Jey twice, Roman pretty much beat Jey into submission and into becoming pretty much like a lapdog for him. And that pretty much set the tone for the entire run for the bloodline. It was Roman pretty much ruling his family with an iron fist. You couldn't really calmly talk things out with him. He held everyone to a perfect standard, and things always had to be his way, no questions asked. And the more Roman became mad with power, the more stress that was added onto Jey to deal with and manage. And then you had other things along the way, like the entire situation between Roman and Sami. Jey was extremely frustrated with that situation because he was close with Roman and Sami, so that battle between them tore him apart. And similar thing when his own brother Jimmy betrayed him at SummerSlam 2023 to cost him the title against Roman Reigns. The brutality from Roman over the years and the betrayal from Jey Uso, it was so much for Jey to deal with that he straight up quit the company for several weeks in 2023. He despised Roman and the family for what they put him through. And then in 2024, when the original bloodline was first coming back together to take on the new bloodline, Jey initially rejected the offer to reunite with Jimmy and Roman. Jey couldn't see himself doing it, but after about 10 days, Jey gave in and reunited with the original bloodline. And one of the biggest complaints with that logic at the time was if it was realistic for Jey to fully forgive and forget about 4 years of trauma that he was put through by Roman in only a week and a half. You're talking about 4+ years of serious trauma caused by Roman, and Jey jumped back on board with Roman after a little over a week. Something about how fast Jey ran back to Roman just didn't sit right with some fans. They feel like there just should have been a little more hesitation there from Jey Uso, given all the gruesome history that does exist there between Roman and himself. The reunion was just too rushed, and the story wasn't really fleshed out about why Jey decided to return to the family. So that brings us to current day and the twist. Roman and Jey just finished defeating Bronson Reed and Braun Breaker in their SummerSlam tag team match. There were even some big storytelling moments in the match, like when Roman sacrificed himself and took the spear so Jey wouldn't have to get hit by it. That was a huge moment that shows the recent change in Roman's character. The Roman from a few years ago is not taking a bullet for anyone. He's not jumping in harm's way for anybody. He'll use you for cover before he gives himself up for you. But now we see that Roman is no longer that same selfish man. He sacrificed himself here for Jey, which led to Jey winning the match. But the twist here would be, what if Jey never really forgave Roman Reigns? What if Jey is still secretly and quietly holding on to that grudge against Roman? Anyone that has experienced any type of trauma will surely tell you that it's not easy to let it go and just move on from it, especially after just 10 days. So what if there is something left there inside of Jey's head? Something that gets triggered, something that grows, and something that eventually leads to him betraying Roman Reigns in a brutal fashion. Just an unexpected brutal beatdown from Jey onto Roman Reigns, where Jey can constantly be yelling and reminding Roman about all the things he put him through over the last few years. probably revealing to Roman right there in that moment that he never really forgot or forgave him about any of it. This creates an interesting dynamic of Jey turning heel because of the old trauma being in control of his mind and actions. Jey doesn't care that Roman has changed in current day. Jey's brain is just locked in on payback and revenge for 4 years of torture that he was put through strictly at the hands of Roman Reigns. It'll be one of those stories where the heel turn is pretty justified and Jey would be spitting nothing but the truth, even as a heel. If Jey brings up everything that happened from 2020 to 2024, it's hard to tell Jey that he's wrong for holding a grudge and feeling that way about Roman. Considering everything he's been through, Jey would be kinda right to feel like that. Maybe Jey secretly hated the 2024 and 2025 reunions with Roman, and was waiting for the right time to strike against Roman. This direction and story twist would obviously lead towards a major reconstruction of Jey's character. Once he betrays Roman Reigns and turns heel, there is no more yeet. There's no more crowd entrances. All that gets wiped away for a more serious version of Jey. And if you were watching during the peak days of the Bloodline, Jey does have a lot of acting range and depth to him. He just hasn't been able to really tap back into those skills under the yeet persona. But a heel version of Jey, a version of Jey that's making Roman pay for all of his sins across multiple years. That's a side of Jey that could tap back into his acting depth and more serious side. It really would be like a remixed and reversed version of their 2020 feud. Roman Reigns is the babyface, and Jey is now the heel. And Jey wouldn't be a heel that's driven by direct and pointless hatred. He'll be more driven by the traumatic experiences and mental torture he went through over those few years. Jey just tucking all that trauma away and never facing it is pretty goofy. So if that trauma does eventually rise to the surface and have a big effect on his attitude and persona, it would be pretty logical for sure. And it'll be a great way to give Roman and Jey something significant to do in current day that doesn't have anything to do with the world title. And it'll be like an extension or sequel to the original Bloodline storyline. Instead of Roman being mad and out of his mind like before, Jey is now the one who has gone mad and absolutely crazy. What are your thoughts on this fan theory? Do you want to see Jey Uso eventually face his trauma and look for revenge on Roman Reigns? Or should they stay united? Leave your comments below. Don't forget to subscribe with all notifications on, and leave a like if you enjoyed. Thanks for watching, guys.